G'day everybody, Chris Fawcett from the Headache and Pain Management Centre here on a lovely Friday afternoon, just turned 12 o'clock, and I'm really excited to be answering a few of your questions that has come forward on the Facebook group this week. So we've had a few really interesting questions, and there's a few that we'll be able to get to and a few that I might actually answer in person directly. But if you stay around to the end of the video today, we'll be announcing when the questionnaire we were talking about during the week will come live. And for those that comment below questionnaire, either on the old post or the one from today, you'll be getting it before anybody else. So it looks like it's going live later next week, but you'll get first access to the questionnaire and the surprises that come with it. But before going on, we've got some amazing questions regarding vasovagal syncope, certain triggers for migraine and headache, why people lose vision, where cluster headaches come from. It's a really wide variety, and I suppose the best way to answer all of the questions is to tell you exactly how headaches can happen in the first place. And I've got my whiteboard here, it's resting tediously on a couple of chairs, so watch out to see if it falls down, because there's every chance to. So if nothing else, you might look like a goose doing it, but that's okay. So I suppose where we're heading with the headaches and migraines is to understand how one actually happens. And as I mentioned in the video earlier in the week, regardless of what type of headache you've actually got, it's actually part of the brain called your headache centre, okay, which has a really long name, but we don't really want to sort of confuse it with really big names. But all the nerves that come into that headache centre can all be affected. So what comes into that headache centre? So basically you've got your neck that comes into it, you've got your jaw that comes into it, you've got the blood vessels in your brain that come into it, okay? And you've also got a few of your vital organs and the feelings that comes from that, and also things which are a little bit more accessory, like your tongue, your teeth, your lips, and so on, okay? So all of them all pass into that headache centre, all right? So basically what happens is that nerves come in, it's processed by this headache centre, and then it's all packaged up really neatly and really nicely, and it's sent up to the higher part of your brain, okay, for processing. Okay, so the big fleshy moist bit, the one that everyone knows about, the one with all the ripples and the cracks in it, is your the big fleshy decision-making part of your brain. So the bit at the bottom, the headache centre, is right at the bottom, right at the top of your spinal cord, bottom of your brain, and it sends a message upwards. Now, when it comes to, regardless of any type of headache, whether it's tension headache, cluster headache, migraine, whatever it might be, what happens is that that nerve centre, the headache centre at the bottom of the brain, becomes sensitised. Okay, so that becomes sensitised. All right. I guess the question when we're talking about the cause of headache and migraine, though, is what actually does become sensitised and how can it become sensitised? The answer to that is that it can be literally anything that can sensitise it at any given time. Okay, so any of these things passing in through that headache centre into your brain can sensitise that headache centre, and it causes that message to go up to your brain to tell your brain that something isn't quite right. Okay, so the really common things are sort of like dehydration, a little bit of stress, possibly some sort of systemic virus or something, which comes into sort of the vital organs part or perhaps the blood vessels part of your brain. Okay, so if you've got a concussion or something, obviously that's going to sensitise your headache centre and you're going to get some pain, or you need to get processed by your brain to get those sort of symptoms. What can happen though is you've got headache and migraine for a very long time, is that you've probably had all of these really nasty things ruled out. So there's something different that could be causing it. So it could actually be your neck that's doing it in the first place. So there's a bit of a signal coming into that headache centre, which then passes into that headache centre, which sensitises it and sends a message up to your brain. Now, the amazing thing about brains when they've got a protection response there is that often your brain can protect you in all sorts of ways. It can protect you with pain, it can protect you with a feeling of anxiety, nausea, all of these sorts of things. What we like to call them are outputs. Outputs. Okay? So that output for you could be a tight neck. That output for you could be a headache on one side of the head or the other. A couple of questions about vasovagal syncope, for example. The syncope is a symptom and it's an output. So you can get the input coming in, the sensitised brainstem comes out, and that output is the vasovagal syncope. Okay, so it could be any of those things causing the output being the syncope. All right, it's the same as why some people might lose vision with their migraines as well. Vision loss is the output; it's being processed by the brain, and your end user experience is that you're losing vision with your migraines as well. Okay. It's the same when you have triggers such as blue light, if you've got dizziness or any other things as well. Another question that came through was specifically to do with cluster headache, and I suppose it's interesting to sort of understand how different types of headache come to pass, because not everyone gets the same symptoms, even though the same causes are there. So it's kind of like the brain itself can sort of open and shut the signals and decide when it wants to give you pain and when it doesn't. So people with cluster headache, so for those that don't know, cluster headache is the type of headache where it's a 15-minute long headache that's about a 12 out of 10 intensity with a watery eye and a runny nose, and it can happen sort of 7 or 8 times a day. Happens a lot in men. Okay, so the difference between someone with a cluster headache and someone with a migraine, for example, that lasts for maybe 3 days, is that output lasts for a long time. Okay, with someone with a migraine, okay, or a tension headache, someone who's got the tension headaches or migraines for a really long time. And then there are others with the cluster headaches where the output can last for a short time, okay? So with the cluster headache. So they're all the same inputs that are coming in, but the outputs are different depending on your genetic makeup, depending on the way that you, the environment you might be in, just how sensitised that you are at any given point in time. Now, obviously, there's a lot more detail that goes into that kind of structure there, but that's pretty much the basics of it. The things to understand is that you have a sensitised brainstem or sensitised headache centre in your brain. It can be sensitised by anything that passes through that headache centre. That signal needs to be processed by your brain. Okay, the brain can decide whether or not it's a danger, it can give you input or output, and then it can give you symptoms which can last a short time, a long time, or somewhere in between, depending on your own circumstances, your own genetics, and things like that. So I hope that's answered a lot of your questions, and I will be making contact with all of you that have put into the comments there the specific questions, which will be great. Now for the bit you've all been waiting for. So the questionnaire, which is called the Headache Symptom Analyzer, is going live next Wednesday to the general public. But what we'll be doing for people who type questionnaire below onto the comments, we'll be sending it on Monday afternoon. And on Monday afternoon, there'll be a special surprise at the end of it for those that fill it out for us. You won't be disappointed. So type questionnaire for anyone who might want that questionnaire, and also feel free to like, comment or share anything that you've learned today. And of course, we're always contactable via the comments below or via Messenger if you've got any more questions. But otherwise, I hope you're having a wonderful Friday, have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you again soon. Cheers.